If you've ever tried playing a bow that didn't have any rosin applied to it, then you know it doesn't really make a sound. The frog is the most complicated part of the bow. Bow makers have a variety of tricks to add weight to different parts of the bow. In the last video, I talked about the different parts of the violin, but the bow is just as crucial for producing beautiful music. And like the violin, it has several parts that serve different functions and can be confusing for the beginner if you don't know what they are. So this video is all about the bow. I'm Michelle, the Intentional Violinist, and this channel is all about sharing what I've learned through experience and research as an adult learner of the violin. At the heart of the bow, just as with the violin, is the wood, which is also known as the stick. It's usually made of a high-quality wood like Pernambuco, and Pernambuco is really prized for its strength, flexibility, and responsiveness. Pernambuco is a type of Brazil wood and arguably the best Brazil wood for making bows, but less expensive bows are made from other types of Brazil wood, which is just a catch-all term for several species of wood. But today we also have bows made from carbon fiber or fiberglass. Fiberglass bows are generally inexpensive, low-quality student bows, so I wouldn't recommend them for an adult as they'll probably just serve more to frustrate you than anything else. But carbon fiber bows come in a wide range of prices. Lower-end carbon fiber bows can be better than wood bows in the same price range, so they're better bang for your buck. And higher-end carbon fiber bows can be even more expensive than many wood bows. And at that higher price, they can be a very similar quality to expensive wood bows. Whether you choose a wood or a carbon fiber bow really just comes down to preference. Some players believe that a carbon fiber bow will never be as great as a wooden bow. But other players think the opposite and like the durability of a carbon fiber bow as it's nearly indestructible if you drop it. Wood bows are certainly more delicate and, they can get cracks in the wood or completely break into two pieces if you have an accident. In the end, whether you choose wood or carbon fiber, your choice of bow should entirely come down to your budget and personal preference. Inherent in choosing a bow are the qualities of the bow, which mostly come from the stick. And I'm not going to discuss all the finer points of bow shopping in this video, but I do want to point out that bow making is an art. Somehow, bow makers are able to take this small piece of wood and just craft it into something that can make playing feel effortless and make the violin sound even better than it already did. No two bows are alike, even if they are from the same maker or the same model from the same company. And so you should always play a large selection of bows before making a purchase decision. Wood versus carbon fiber can be a highly contested topic, so let's do it. Tell me in the comments below, what do you have, wood or carbon fiber? Or both? And what made you choose that bow or those bows? Many strands of hair form a ribbon, which is the part of the bow that vibrates the violin strings to produce sound. Traditionally, that ribbon of hair is made of horsehair, typically from the tails of Mongolian or Siberian horses, as the cold climate is believed to produce stronger, more durable hair. And while horsehair is still predominantly used, synthetic options also exist now. Horsehair is interesting because it's not smooth. It has a scaly outside structure, and it acts as barbs to grip the strings. And that plus the stickiness of rosin allows the bow to make a sound when pulled across the string. If you've ever tried playing a bow that didn't have any rosin applied to it, then you know it doesn't really make a sound. Over time, the horsehair does wear from the friction on the strings of playing. So the scaly structures on the hair can become more smooth, which means that the hair won't grip the strings as well. And then you're going to find yourself using more and more rosin to get the same grip and produce that same sound. The hair can also break just from all of this wear and tear or just from aggressive playing. And if too many hairs break, especially on one side of the bow, like if all of these broke off here, then that can actually cause the stick to warp. So that's really not a great thing. But normal wear and tear on the horsehair is normal, and that's why bows are regularly re-haired. You take your bow to a luthier, and he or she will remove the old horsehair and replace it with brand new horsehair. One important point though is if you do have some hairs break, which is normal and happens, and a few hairs breaking does not necessitate a rehair, but then you might have a big piece like this, hanging, right? And so it'll just be a loose hair. You don't want to pull that out. You want to cut it off with scissors at each end really carefully, because if you just pull it out, it can actually cause the rest of the hairs to come loose. Changes in humidity can also cause changes to the hair. When it's more humid than usual for your area, your horsehair is going to get longer. And when it's less humid, the hair is going to shrink. So if the hair is too long, you won't actually be able to tighten it enough for playing. It'll just stay loose like this. And if it's too short, then you're not going to be able to loosen the bow after playing. And if you keep the horsehair under tension like this, then that can actually cause the stick to warp over time. So you always want to loosen the horsehair after playing. But keeping humidity levels within the normal range is important so that way your horsehair stays around the length that it's supposed to. Some players find that the humidity in their area changes drastically with the seasons. So depending upon where you live, it might be recommended that you rehair your bow twice a year in the summer and the winter to deal with the humidity changes of where you live. And if you don't have that problem, and you're wondering how often you have to rehair your bow, generally it's recommended every 6 to 12 months. So if you play a lot more, then you're going to wear out the hair faster. If your playing style is really aggressive and you break a lot of strings or wear out the hair faster, then you might need to rehair more often. If you live somewhere where you have a lot of environmental changes and humidity and temperature, you might have to rehair more often. But if you aren't that aggressive a player, you don't practice that much, you don't have a lot of changes in your weather, then maybe you can go longer without a rehair. So somewhere between 6 to 12 months, but it really just all comes down to, how the bow feels when you're playing and, if it's still working properly for you. Or, if you have enough hair left on there, if you haven't broken too much off. The frog is the most complicated part of the bow, and it houses several other parts within it. It's usually made of ebony and often has a decorative mother of pearl eye. The ferrule is the metal part where the horsehair enters the frog, and in the ferrule you have a piece of cork which helps the horsehair fit snugly. On the bottom of the frog, you have the slide, which is often made of mother of pearl, just like the eye, and it actually slides on and off the frog, giving access to the inside of the frog for rehairs. The screw at the end of the bow stick is actually inserted into the stick quite a bit, and it grabs the horsehair through an opening in the stick that is covered by the frog. You're able to loosen and tighten the horsehair by turning the screw. The screw can also have decorative features on it and maybe a mother of pearl inlay as well. The tip is the pointy end of the bow opposite the frog. And horsehair is attached underneath a tip plate at this part of the bow. The tip plate might be made of plastic or metal. Thumb leather is a leather or similar material that provides a place for part of your hand to grip the bow. The leather makes the grip more comfortable and secure than holding the bare wood, and it also helps to protect the wood from your hands, sweat, and oils. Thumb leather will wear out over time, but it's an inexpensive part to replace. Finally, we have the winding, and it's a wrap of metal around the bow in front of the thumb leather. It's commonly made of nickel or silver, but it can also be made of gold, which is usually reserved for a bow maker's finest bows. The winding also serves to protect the wood, like thumb leather, as players often have a finger or two overlapping the winding, depending upon their playing style. But the winding also serves another crucial purpose, and that's to add weight to the bow. Bow makers have a variety of tricks to add weight to different parts of the bow, mostly inherent in the actual carving of the stick. But the length and material of the winding chosen at the end of the process helps determine the final weight and the balance point of the bow, which affects how the bow plays. It's also a part that can be easily replaced if it gets worn, or if the player wants to experiment with changing the weight and balance point of the bow. Each part of the bow plays a small but important role, and together they shape how it feels to play and how your violin sounds. It's a reminder of the craftsmanship that goes into turning simple materials into something that really makes a violin sing. I'm the Intentional Violinist, and if you found this video informative, the best way that you can support this channel is to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so that you can join our community of intentional violinists. Until next time, keep practicing. Are you confused about tuning frequencies? 440 hertz versus 441 hertz? Or maybe you just want to understand frequency better, or even just what it actually means.